Want to boost your picture taking skills without buying expensive camera equipment? Here are 5 ways to take better pictures with your smartphone. Step 1. Lighting. Lighting is very important in photography, and some people say it's the most important thing in the sense of getting the most out of your camera or getting the highest quality pictures out of your camera, or the most clear pictures per se. But as I'm going to show you, it's not always the most important thing in photography, but I'm going to show you some basics about lighting to get better, clearer pictures with your camera, with your smartphone camera. This is my first subject, my cat. As I was talking about earlier, it's important to get a very clear picture to have the most light reflecting back into your camera without having sharp light or light that isn't diffused, essentially, that doesn't blind out parts of the picture. And the second most important thing is to have some source of fill light. As I am outside right now, it's hard to see my cat too well because my only source of light is the sun. However, if I frame it correctly, the sun is over here currently, so I'm getting the most light across my cat's face. And there's also lots of light bouncing around these trees right now, filling up most of the shadows around my cat. Something that works in conjunction with lighting is position and framing, which I'm going to combine steps 2 and 3 into one because they go together so well. So I'm going to take this pine cone and try to get a good clear picture of it, a standard clear picture, as in I'm not trying to convey any sense of style in my picture, which I'm going to talk about in step 4. So I'm going to go over in the grass over there where there's plenty of the sunlight reflecting through the blades of the grass and try to get a picture of this pine cone and try to get it as clear as possible for my smartphone camera sensor. So try to maximize the clarity of my camera sensor. Probably the most important thing I can see about position and framing is that with only one source of light, again in this case, I'm trying to keep it all the settings as simple as possible and as most realistic as possible, because if you're taking a picture with your phone, half the time you're probably outside, or half the time you're probably outside and only have the sun as your source of light and no such thing as lighting or camera equipment or any reflectors or anything. So working with one source of light, just make sure you don't have any part of the picture blinded out. And I'll show you a couple pictures here where maybe part of the sky is blinded out just because you focused on the ground, or just didn't find a good focus point or angle where part of your picture is blinded out by too much light or a sharp source of light. And that's why you may hear a lot of people say that cloudy days are the best days to take pictures, and this is true because your light is diffused by the clouds, and so it's evenly spread out in most cases when it's cloudy outside, giving you the best lighting possible with only one source of light. Like, that's the best. A cloudy day is the perfect example of good lighting with only one source of light, without 3-point lighting or 5 or 8-point lighting. So in this case, I'm just going to make sure I take multiple pictures from multiple angles. That way, if afterwards I see that one picture turned out better than the other just because of the angle, which is almost always true, it's always best to take multiple pictures of your subject from creative angles after you take 1 or 2 pictures. Like, say I want a picture right here, just a standard picture of this pine cone sitting in the grass, just like this. That would work, but afterwards you might have trouble with light being too bright, or the picture just looking too dull because of how simple it is, with just a pine cone sitting in the middle of the picture and nothing special about it. So my rule of thumb is take 3 pictures. So in this case, I'd probably go with one normal one from here, maybe one from the top, or from the side, or even like from all the way down in the grass, like from an ant's point of view or something, where you take the camera way low. Try to become creative with your positioning and framing of your pictures, because that can often change the whole composition of the picture and give you a much better result than you expect. So, step 2 and 3, just remember that one rule: take multiple pictures from multiple angles, and you will most likely see a boost in all of your pictures because of you giving yourself essentially more chances with each picture for it to turn out better or more creative, and essentially a better chance of having good lighting because you're changing the framing, and therefore the lighting has to change because you're going at it from a different angle per se. Step 4, style. Now, the two most important things to think about when developing your style and trying to evoke style maybe, or just putting style in your portfolio, the two most important things to think about are what style you're trying to evoke, if it's very specific, and number 2, your subject, the properties of your subject, the interesting things about your subject, just everything about your subject and what you can do with it. Now, probably the best way for me to teach style, not that I'm an expert on it, but just what I've kind of figured out over time, is just to show how I would go through setting up and taking a picture. The first thing to remember, and I'm going to keep going back to this, is when you set up a picture, or before you take a picture, set up the picture and put thought into it. That's how I get the most out of my pictures, is when I put the most into my picture. So with a pine cone sitting in my backyard, there's only a couple things to that setting and to the subject. To the subject, the pine cone has a lot of texture. That's a property of the subject of the pine cone that is important. It has a lot of texture. It has a good rich brown color, and that's pretty much it for the pine cone. And the things for the settings are the grass has good rich green color, and the sky, you only have one source of light. You have the sun as your source of light. And so those are the things I would consider before I take that picture. I would think about the fact that I have one source of light, that it's the sun, so it's different, it's natural light, and the pine cone has a lot of texture, and the colors I can get with the pine cone and the grass, the contrasting color perhaps. And so what I would do, and what I did, is before I even took my first picture, I set up the pine cone and decided a few angles beforehand that I would take. I'd move my camera around and try to get a different framing of the pine cone. And I decided that what I wanted to do is to try to focus on the sun's rays bouncing off of the sides of the pine cone. And so this might leave the pine cone looking more like a silhouette, because the camera is not focusing on the pine cone as much as it is focusing on the sun's rays. So the pine cone might even appear blurry. But I'm emphasizing the sun and the sun's rays and how it interacts with the pine cone. And so that's going to be my style that's the style behind that picture. The purpose of that picture was to show the sun's rays interacting with the pine cone. So that's the style behind that picture. Another example might be taking a picture of a chicken, let's say. So say you're taking a picture of a chicken and you think about, okay, well, what are the properties of my subject? Just like the pine cone, the chicken has a lot of texture because of its feathers. Another thing is, it might, depending on the type of chicken, it might be speckled or something, or have a lot of colors. Often a chicken will have a lot of different colors. Or it might be a single colored chicken, but my point is, that could be another property. It not only has texture, but has a lot of color. And so you would, in that case, to get texture and color, you'd probably want really good lighting, and not necessarily one-point lighting. And another thing to think about is whatever setting you put your chicken in, and if you take the picture from above of the chicken, or if maybe you zoom way in and only take a picture of the chicken's head, or if you take a picture of it with chickens in the background and they're blurry and but you're focusing on one chicken in the forefront. The way I found to develop your style is to put thought into your picture, so much to that other people, when they see your picture, they see the thought you put into that picture, and they appreciate it. And that's what kind of turns your pictures in your portfolio from ordinary pictures of ordinary things, and kind of turns that into art. And so that's the purpose of style, is making pictures become art and not just another picture. So step 4, style. The 5th step is post-production, or editing your picture. I recommend you download LD or lens distortions, as you can see at the upper part of my screen, and Photoshop Express. Both of them are free apps, and you can do very simple but effective edits after you take each picture. So let me open up Photoshop Express on my phone, and I'll record my screen and show you what I normally do with a photo if I'm going to edit it without adding any creative aspects to it. So if I'm just doing simple editing, possibly just trying to improve the lighting of a photo, not adding any creative effects or style like I was talking about in step 4. So let's get to it. Okay. So, open up Photoshop Express, and you'll see all the photos on your phone. The ones shown right now are pictures of one of my other cats. So, I'll go ahead and click one and open it up and just show you all the simple editing that you can do quite quickly in Photoshop Express and improve the lighting and make your picture look a lot better. So if you look down, you'll see a couple of tabs that I'm scrolling through right now. The first one is 3 circles together. That is all the filters. The second one is cropping your photo, rotating it, transforming it, etc. The third one is corrections, and that's the one I'm going to be showing you how to use. So if you see, when I click on corrections, a bunch of different options show up, such as light, color, effects, and details. So if I go back to light, you see we have exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. So with exposure, that just changes how much light is exposed to your camera, and it's not actually like a raw file where you can edit the actual exposure. It just makes it appear like the exposure it's changing through the software that the app has. And usually I would say don't change the exposure. You usually don't need to. Or the contrast. You can up the contrast a little bit, but if you see, if I put it all the way, or all the way up or all the way down, it looks too extreme and doesn't look like a real look. If you do use contrast, I would say keep it between 0 and 30. That would up the contrast a little bit and emphasize contrast between colors. So next one is highlights. Highlights is very, very important. As I was talking about earlier, with having parts of your picture grayed out, like when the sky was white because I had focused on the shadowy trees below the sky, and so the sky kind of looked blown out and white and you couldn't really see any color or clouds. Highlights helps you take care of that. So usually with highlights, I scroll that all the way down, or almost all the way down. It helps get rid of gray spots in your picture and improves the lighting. Next one is shadows. You can either add to the shadows by scrolling down or take away shadows. And I'm going to take away shadows so I can more clearly see my cat. Next one is whites. As you can see, if you scroll up, it doesn't look very good. I usually scroll whites and blacks, either all the way down or partially down with blacks. Since the cat is black, I'd actually scroll it up so you could see the cat much more clearly. So next thing is color. You have temperature, tint, vibrance, and saturation. The only ones that really matter are vibrance and saturation, and I'd say bump those up between 0 and 30, maybe just as long as it stays realistic, because if you bump it all the way up, it does not look realistic. So just add to your color, make your colors a tiny bit more vibrant and saturated, but not much. Like I'm putting them 16 or 17 on its scale. So you see that still looks like a real good picture, not fake or over colored or too saturated. So next thing is effects, which you have clarity and dehaze. Dehaze kind of like darkens the whole picture and sometimes turns it, depending on what the picture is of, sometimes it even makes the picture look, like if you have a picture of the sky, it makes it look like it's about to, you're in the middle of a storm. It darkens it mostly. I'm not sure what else it does to your picture. I think it takes away any blurry parts of the picture, hence dehaze, like taking away hazes. Maybe if there's any sky in your picture. But I just leave that at around 0. Clarity, I would usually bump up clarity all the way up or partially up. Makes your picture artificially appear more clear than it is, or than it kind of helps your picture. It kind of helps your picture look clearer than you took it. And so I usually would bump that up. The next thing, which is very similar under details, you have sharpen and reduce luminance noise and reduce color noise. Luminance and color noise don't really do much, but sharpen, I'd put sharpen up. Little tiny details often become, little tiny things in your picture often become more clear under sharpen, and under clarity, larger objects become sharper and makes the picture clearer. So now before you save the picture to your phone, that's literally all there is to editing. It's very simple, very simplified version of Photoshop. The top right corner, you see that little box with an upward arrow. That's what you click to save your photo. But before we do it, the icon on the left of that icon lets you toggle between your edited version of the photo and your photo. So I'm going to click that and see the original photo, and you see that, and now I will click it again to see my edited photo, and you see how much better your photo looks, how much more color I have in my photo. And so that's the advantage of using Photoshop Express. Click the top right corner and click camera roll, and it will save to my camera roll. Next thing I will do is go to LD, Lens Distortions, and click my photo to open it. And Lens Distortions, you won't be using it very much, but you can add things like fog. Maybe you're taking a picture of a person in a studio or something. Like, it's not applicable very often. You could put rain, fake rain, or kind of a blur in one corner of your photo. But light hits and principal light hits are probably the most important ones, because those are ones you will most commonly be using. I'm going to click this foggy looking sun one right here in the center and try to kind of get like the effect of the sun being in one corner of the photo, kind of like on the upward side, so it looks more real. So now I click the top right corner to save, and then I click save image in the bottom left corner, and now it is saved in my camera roll. So now I will go over to my camera roll, and you see adding that little lens distortion kind of adds to the picture, makes it more artistic. And you compare that to the original picture. You see, that is the original picture, and that is the final product. So as you can see, post-production in most cases is very important, can add a lot to your content. So I totally recommend using Photoshop Express and LD, which stands for Lens Distortions. Thank you again for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a lot. I hope you're going to take a lot from this video. Please subscribe for more and check out the links in my description to see my portfolio. To see my portfolio and the gear I use on a regular basis, and my website. Thank you.